Hello, and welcome to this lecture on Adobe Illustrator by Eduonix Technologies. In this lecture, we're going more into effects, which we've covered in the previous tutorial. There's also going to be one more after this, and then we're going to go into appearances. And in this lesson, we're going to be focusing on Illustrator effects, as you see here. Now, you know we've already covered a lot of them, but I'm going to go more in depth into them and show you some of the ones we haven't, particularly distort and transform. I'm going to start off with my personal favorite, which is transform. It does everything that the transform option does, or shortcut key E, except for one little difference, and that's copies. And I'll show you. Let's say I want to rotate this 90 degrees. Alright, that's what transform does. Now, let's say I want to keep the original. All I have to do is enter in one copy. But that's only the beginning. What if we enter in 8 and we set this to 30? So I'm going to have like a really cool asterisk. And when you play with the vertical sliders at this point, you can get some really cool effects as well. As well as a nice spiral effect, which I like to make basically by just having your horizontal set to the left, vertical to the right. You'll figure out there's a lot of stuff you can do. I'm going to zoom out. Go back into it. So reflect Y and reflect X will give you a lot of symmetry. Doing them both together can give you some really cool stuff like this. And even better, my favorite is random. So when you really get the hang of this tool, you can create some really cool stuff using just simple shapes. I'm going to drag this over here. I'm going to show you a pretty cool trick to get some awesome effects. One of the good uses for the flare tool, honestly, I don't use it very much aside from this one particular use. So you draw out your flare, and it's located in the shapes under rectangle. You go to, let's just start off up here in effect, which will give you your most previous, what you just used right here, without a dialog box. It'll just do the exact same thing, and right here it'll bring up the old dialog box. If I just click preview with this, I get roughly the same thing as over there. But let's get rid of some of these right here. Let's set these back to original at 100. There you see something pretty cool right there. Without the scaling, it does a spiral. And let's set this to 0. Something else pretty cool. Now, with that, let's actually set the vertical down a little bit and up. Once again, you're getting the spiral. Horizontal and vertical at the same time. You get something entirely different. So as you can see, I've set my horizontal and vertical to the same measurement, which means it's going to be coming out at you for the amount of copies that you have. I'm going to hit OK real quick and shrink this down. I'm going to hit 10% in the width and height in the control panel with it selected. for each of the values because I really want you to see this. Now I'm just going to go back into my transform effect in the appearance panel by clicking on it. Set this to about 119 and 119. Still 0 right there. And I'm going to set this to about 15. As you notice, the more copies I go up, the more it comes at you. Now watch what happens when you hit random. Playing around with vertical, you get your spirals again. My particular favorite is playing around with random and reflect X and Y, or just reflect X and Y, it gives it the symmetry. Once we start moving these around with random on, we start to get some pretty cool stuff. Right there, it would take us so long to do that manually, and as you saw, it was just a few little clicks. And there's way more you can do than just that, but I'm going to go on because we have a lot to cover. So if you notice, I have two extruded shapes here. They're still in their effects form. They haven't been expanded. I just want to show you what you can do with the extrude and bevel tool and the blend tool combined. I selected the blend tool. I'm going to double click on it. 5 steps is good, but let's do 8. And I'm just going to click the 2. And as you see, you get a nice smooth tumbling effect. Now if I were to go into here, click on its extrude bevel, the red cube, and flip this around like that, you get an even better effect. You could use this to create an animation really easily as far as the blend tool and your complex shapes that haven't been expanded yet still have their appearances. Right now I'm going to show you these tools over here, which is the bloat tool, the twirl tool, pucker, scallop and crystallize, and warp. Warp is the most generic tool. You can edit any of these by double clicking on them. Width and height are going to be the size of your brush. For this one, I'm going to want about 110. Intensity is how long you have to hold it in, how slow it moves. Lower intensity is slower, more control. Unless you're really impatient, I wouldn't set anything to more than 5, 10, 20, but it varies per tool. So for the warp tool, this is going to be the one you tend to want to have it higher. And as you see, I have an oval here because I set my height and my width differently. I'm just going to set these to 80 each. When you have your height and width differently, the angle comes into play, but if they're the same, it's just a circle, angle doesn't matter. So anyway, back to this. So I have my warp tool, and it works just like a brush. You just drag, and you create your shape. When you're using a warp tool with any of these, you can create some pretty cool stuff. Really great for making logos and stuff. I like to swirl, starting in the middle and just swirl. You get cool effects like that. There's something even better for that. But first, I just have to do it to this. I'm going to drag this over here. So let's look at some of the other tools underneath warp. And if you don't see this symbol, it's Shift W will bring up the panel, but you might see this one. This is the default one. So I'm going to click on Twirl next and just show you how cool this can be. As you can see, it twirls things. And now I'm going to set it to a lower brush size, something like 32, 32. And this is where you want to start turning your intensity down. Twirl's a pretty fast tool. Not as fast as bloat, but you'll see all that. I'm going to set the twirl rate to a little higher. By default, yours should be a little higher. Anyway. As you can see, you can create some pretty cool stuff. Using blend, twirl, extrude, and bevel. Now I'm going to show you the bloat tool. This is where you want to set your size or your intensity to about 5 or so, unless you're using a pressure pen. And set the width to, you want this to usually be bigger, much bigger than your shapes, with a low intensity. And if you're practicing long, you'll kind of understand why. So I'm going to select this first. And notice how I just selected one anchor point and I bloated it. You can select whatever you want and bloat two opposing anchor points. The entire thing, or what have you. And as far as the other tools, scallop, crystallize, wrinkle, they all kind of do the same thing. I'm just going to show you crystallize, one of my favorites. I'll show it to you down here on this octagon. Now I have it set to a very high setting. I'm going to set it back to around defaults. Lower complexity, lower detail, that's around where the default is. I'm going to set my height to 160, my width to 160. Intensity can actually go down really low with this one. And I'm going to show you how to make a burst. Flare tool is a good place to start out with. You can always change the color later, but since it has all those nice gradients and everything, let's just take our crystallize tool that we had set up. And you can't see the boundaries, it's pretty big. You just kind of want to click around the inside of that, and there you have a pretty cool burst. And if you just want to intensify that, go to Distort, Transform. Transform, and I'm sure you see where I'm going with this. Set it to something like 30. And make a bunch of copies. It's good starting point for making a vector illustration of an explosion. Because normally they're not that symmetrical. You could just envelope distort this after you had expanded it and do all kinds of cool stuff. And with that, that concludes our lesson on Adobe Illustrator type effects. The next one's going to be on Photoshop type effects. Thank you for watching.